All right, so far in our game, we have it sort of working. So I changed mine a little bit from what yours was. I just kind of cleaned up the code and commented it. I'll show you that in a second. But basically, we have this going on here, right? But there's a couple of things I'm not a huge fan of, and we're going to fix those right now. Okay, so right off the bat, one of the things I don't like is that you may have noticed, and we actually thickened it up to fix this, but it's not 100% like a great fix, is that he's going through the ground, right? Which is not really super great. And it gets even worse if, I don't know, did I put that in here? I did not. Okay. It gets even worse if he falls farther. So I'm going to show you what that is right here. So I'm just going to hold this down and control minus. So if I put this down really far, okay, and I'll test it real quick so you can see. All right. Okay. So it's even worse when we do this. If we go down really far, it goes right through. Now, the reason why that happens, it might have even started happening in the other one, is because you have to remember what it's doing in order to test those collisions is that it's testing every frame that it's moving across. Okay, so what I mean by that basically is that let's get closer. So if he's moving, let's say he's going here, right? Now when he moves from frame 1 to the next one, it's going to be like this far, right? But then we add to that, right? So that means the next frame, he moves from here to, let's say, here, right? And then the next frame, he moves here to here, and then here to here, and the gap's bigger and bigger. So what ends up happening is that he might end up here, and then the next frame is here. He's already past it. So the problem is that the distance between the movements are so large that it no longer has a chance to detect this. So we're going to do something that's going to kind of fix it. We'll see how well it works. It's also going to, and that's what's happening here, the reason why it's going through the floor. Like sometimes he almost lands on the floor, sometimes he doesn't. It's a matter of when it first reads that it's penetrating basically the ground. And that's what we're going to solve first. And then once that's solved, then we'll fix some of the other stuff here. Okay, so what I want to do is this. I'm going to, well, it doesn't really matter. We'll just keep it like it is. So I'm going to take this object and I'm just going to duplicate it, Control D to duplicate. And I'm going to put it right in the, actually, we're going to put it lower right about here. Okay, so not in the center, but a little bit lower, but above the ground check, okay? Now, if you remember, this one's called ground check, and that's what we're using in order to test that we're hitting the ground. We'll come back to this one, actually. Delete that, actually. We'll come back to that. I'll show you. So let's fix the ground check first. The way I'm going to solve this is that when he goes up, and then when he lands, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to move this from his body depending on how fast he's going. So if the Y speed is high, it's going to make this farther away from it. And if the Y speed is low, it's going to make it closer. And what that's going to do is it's basically going to push it farther down so it has more of a chance to basically detect it. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the actions. You'll see it when it's running. I think you'll get the idea better. So I'm going to open up my actions. And then what I'm going to do is right inside of, let's see, where are you? Right inside of here. And we'll just put it right after these. It doesn't really matter. We're going to go ahead and we're just going to change the ground check. That's the name of that object. Dot Y. It's Y position. It's up and down position. I'm going to set it equal to the player dot Y. So the player Y position. Now the thing is that would be, come on, get out of the way here. That would be right in the center. So I don't want it in the center, right? I want it off center, so down here. So I have to move it down. So it's going to be player dot Y. And then we'll just say plus 50. You might need to change this number depending on how large your player is, right? So that number might be larger or smaller. It's probably somewhere around 50. I think mine's 50, so I might change mine too. But we're going to do that plus the Y speed. And what that's going to do is that Y speed, right, is the thing that says how much to move up or down. That is going to get moved based on how quickly it's moving up and down. So watch what happens when we jump and stuff now. So it's going to look normal, but whenever I jump, you're going to see it starts to push down. And notice that it actually leads him a little bit, and it makes it he's still going to go on the ground a little bit, but it definitely helps because it basically kind of counteracts a little bit to keep him from being on the ground. And then let's see if this works. We went pretty far with this. I didn't work on that one. It will work to some extent, but it's only going to work so well. So, but that will help keep him above the ground. Okay. Now, I want to do something similar for his side-to-side motion, right? So the solution we have right now is that if you look at it, when you go side to side, we just bump him off. And we're going to keep that, but it's still possible, like if you get enough speed, he's not really doing it here, to kind of get into the wall a little bit, right? And you might have even actually been able to clip and get through it, especially if the wall's thinner. So I'm going to do the same thing, but for up here, for his chest instead. The other issue is, too, I was going to show you, is that he can actually clip into the level above. So watch, if I go, let's see, I got to time it right. See how like he kind of is clipping in there? Because basically, depending on when I go in, as long as this center part isn't here and the bottom part isn't going to hit it, then basically you can kind of cut through, and that looks kind of weird too. So this will also fix that to some degree. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this guy and we're going to duplicate it, and we're going to put this one right roughly in the center, but towards the bottom. The nice thing is, if we put it towards the bottom, that when he comes up here, it'll bump up against it. This is going to be our new wall checker. So instead of checking the center point of our player, we're going to use this instead, okay? So we're just going to call this wall check instead of ground check for it. So this one's instance name is ground check. This one is wall check, all right? That's the difference between them. All right. And we're going to use that in order to test, okay? So we're going to do kind of the same thing we did in the code here, where I added the ground check, but we're going to do wall check dot x, because we're doing this way, is going to be equal to the player dot x plus x speed in parentheses times 4 and then semicolon. Okay, so basically what's going to do is it's going to put it right in the center of the player, and then it's going to, based on the x speed, so when we're moving forward or back, which is our x speed, it's going to add that to it, which is going to push it in one direction or the other. Now, I did it times 4 because if you just do x speed, it only moves it a little bit. So this multiplier here, this times 4, that number might need to be larger or smaller. It depends on how thick your character is and how fast your character moves. So this number could change, right? Originally I just did x speed, that was enough. Then I did times 2, times 3, and I came up with times 4 seemed like an okay amount. Okay, so that's how I came up with that number. It's not really, there's no like, I don't know, special science to it. Okay, so now you see it moving, right? So it moves with my arrows. It doesn't do anything right now. See how I was able to get pretty far into there? So what we're going to do is instead of right down here where we have background, where we did tested players hitting walls, right now it's doing player.x. We're going to not use player anymore, and we're going to use wall check. Just like we use ground check. For the ground, we're going to use this new one called wall check. And now when I go to do it, you're going to see he's a lot less likely. See how he's not hitting the ground as much? And because of where it's at, because I lowered it to below him, it actually keeps him from being able to penetrate when he jumps up too, because it'll hit the wall check. See what I'm saying? I can't clip it like I want to. See how I'm going in there and I can't quite do it? So it keeps me from being able to do that as well. All right? So that's just going to clean up basically our motions. All right? That was the main thing I was going for with this part here. Another thing that would be nice to do, well, I'm going to try and make these videos a little bit smaller and just do simple things. So we're going to call this done with this one. I fixed basically, to some degree, some of the clipping. You might need to adjust the numbers and such. So But that, I think, helps at least a little bit. Now, I know these little things are annoying. We're going to leave them in there for now. Eventually, we'll turn the visibility of them off so you won't see them anyway, but they're just there for now. All right, so I will see you in the next one.